we work all three on standardization in different aspects. So I will start, and it will be easy. I will speak about the TDM reservation protocol. The issue for most publishers is that at the moment, content is taken by AI actors without any counterpart, any contract. In Europe, this is totally legal. Since 2019, taking content for data mining, text and data mining, is legal, unless, and so the unless is very important, unless the content providers, so the publisher or the contractors of the content publisher, distributors, booksellers, unless they express their will to keep their rights in a machine-readable way. So it means that every publisher, every content provider, I would say, should be able to raise a flag with its content saying, no, don't touch. So it's really the no trespass. This law in Europe is from 2019. At the time, it was an opt-out from text and data mining. And I'm sure that in this room, nobody really knows what represents text and data mining. What is the scope of text and data mining? And at the time, the publishers, book publishers, news publishers, music publishers that were in the room discussing that in Europe, didn't know the extent. So that it was not dangerous at the time. And AI didn't exist at the time. Well, didn't exist in the, as we know it now. So nobody really felt endangered by this law and this exception to copyright. Some years after, we know what happens, and we know that all the big LLMs, so the large language models, are trained with content that is scraped from everywhere. The AI actors say, okay, but it's legal in Europe. We've got an exception to copyright for that. And in 2020, the Federation of European Publishers came to EDRLab saying, okay, we've got a law, we can make an opt-out, we don't know which opt-out standard should exist. Please help us. So we created something which is called TDM Reservation Protocol. That is a very simple way to say no trespass. So it doesn't stop a robot to get your content. It just indicates that, legally speaking, an AI actor or TDM actor at large has no right to take the content. It's deployed in Europe and elsewhere, and the AI actors don't care. It's a fact. They don't care. Why don't they care? Many reasons. First, they say that AI is not exactly like text and data mining. So then they say that, okay, but your text and data mining directive is something, but there is an AI directive in Europe coming, so let's wait for the AI directive. And then they say, okay, but when we train, it's not exactly what is in the law. So at the moment, it's very confusing. So, but we start having discussions. So we had 3 steps of discussion. One was at the W3C, we founded a community group. We did this at the W3C because we thought that the AI actors are there at the W3C. W3C, World Wide Web, Google, Apple, all the others, they are there. So we created something, we created a specification. The specification was adopted by content providers. It's totally conform to the EU copyright directive. So no effect. Then we moved to Brussels, and there is a think tank in Brussels called Open Future. We did something with them to discuss and get the AI actors in the table. So they came on the table. So we had something that was synchronized with the creation of the EU AI directive. And now there is a third phase, which is interesting, and this is the one I would like to speak about. It is moving to the Internet Engineering Task Force, which is another standardization body. That's why really standardization bodies are important. And the initiative is called AI Pref, like preference. It's less EU-centric. And there is some interest from AI actors, because there we focus on an evolution of what is called robots.txt, which is the small file on websites that indicate what crawlers should do. So there is a move to, one, something which is totally web-oriented, and two, less Eurocentric, and three, more detailed, because the TDM law says you can raise a flag TDM yes or TDM no. Here we want to raise mini flags that say AI training yes or no, AI in general yes or no, maybe a RAG yes or no. So there are many discussions about detailed authorizations of use of content. This is complex. We will see how it works. The biggest complexity is that training an AI, so creating a machine, is something. So using content for creating an AI is, I would say, easily blocked. Easily blocked. You can easily say, I don't want my content to be used by big companies who want to train their machine with that. Okay. On the other side, there are people who use content. Sorry, you use the machine, use the AI engine, and feed it with some content. This is called inference. And blocking inference is more complex. So if some of you are interested in this or have some technical background, I ask you to join this IETF work, which is totally open to everybody, because we want to finalize a proposal by September. But they say August, I don't believe that. September, that would treat the issue of AI training and AI inference and create something in robots.txt that would be agreed by big AI actors. So this is a very important work. It's now. So if you want to join, please do. So this was about this. I will just show you the state of the discussion. It's like Russian dolls. People would be able to opt out from text and data mining at large, considering that AI training is a subset. Generative AI training is still a subset. So I put on the right some examples, potential examples of use of content by this kind of training. And on the left, what is around inference, the use of the machine. And there are two really different things there. There are queries. I feed a machine with my content. I will give an example. I want to translate a text. I feed the machine with my text. It is under copyright, my text, but I feed the machine with the text. Should it be blocked or not? I give to a machine an image for having an image description. Can it be blocked or not? So it's a real question. And on the other side, there is, on the inference side, the RAG, retrieval augmented generation. I give some content, so prompt. The machine goes to the web, find other content, crawls, mix the content it just crawls live with the content of the training, and gives me an answer. So in one, the query is I feed a machine with content. The RAG is the machine goes to find some content by itself. The responsibility is not the same. What can be blocked, what cannot be blocked? It's a question that we have to solve before the end of the year. For example, if content providers can block search, so RAG, maybe they will have a penalty in discoverability in AI search. For example, there is Google AI Overview, there is Perplexity, it's AI search, they use content live. Can it be blocked or not? And there is a clash with accessibility. When I give an image to a machine to get some image description, if it's blocked, accessibility is blocked. Is it right? Is it wrong? This is a big question, so we have to solve that. So this is really a very short overview. I had less than 10 minutes on this work. I'm part of this ITF work, the W2C work, but we cannot be alone. We need more brains around us. Thank you.
Thank you. So next I'm going to talk about OPDS. So for those of you who don't know those letters, don't worry, I'm going to explain it. So OPDS is a standard for distributing digital publication that has been going on now for a good number of years, actually. The very first implementation of OPDS was designed with the launch of the App Store, with an app called Stanza. So it's been going on for a good number of years. It's mostly used for two use cases. There's a use case of harvesting publication from a source. So for example, in the US, if I take an organization like Lyrasis, I don't know if some of you know them, they create an aggregated view of a library catalog by harvesting from multiple sources. So they might get, I don't know, journals alongside ebooks, all sort of content. So it can be used for harvesting. It's also used for something else. It's also used for end-user distribution. So maybe some of you have tried, for example, Thorium. I hope so. Thorium on desktop has support for OPDS, and it makes it possible to, as a user, to browse into your catalog, let's say a public library, and browse, search, borrow. And it has become increasingly popular with libraries over the year, with multiple countries where the vast majority of ebooks and audiobooks borrowed are actually using this technology. So it's really becoming quite popular with libraries. So it's always been a bit of a group effort. So OPDS has always been whoever shows up. Like if you're interested, you show up, we have meetings, we kind of work it out. But with the kind of adoption we're seeing now, we know that we have to go the extra mile, the extra step. And since there's been a lot of interest in the US, what we're currently considering is pushing OPDS 2, which is not so new, has been out there for a while now, through NISO. So if some of you don't know NISO, think of it as US ISO or something like this. So they're very focused on the library market, for example, in the US. And this is kind of similar to what we've done in the past with LCP, where we went through Korea first, before we went the extra step of going through ISO standard. So I think we're really finally putting, it's been a long time, but we're finally putting OPDS on a track where it can become a national standard and eventually a full international standard. So I think that's pretty big news, and we're, of course, part of the effort. And then the other thing we're doing is we've realized we have a lot of members within EDRLab actively using OPDS today. Some of them are catalog, some of them are content providers, some of them are building reading apps or even reading devices, e-ink readers, Braille tablets, you name it. And there's a bit of a missed opportunity of not working more closely together on that. So we're very much driven by this idea of creating a group producing best practices, providing test credentials, certification or testing tools. And so we're about to launch this, what we call the OPDS Interoperability Task Force. It's quite a mouthful. And if any of you is interested, just let me know. We think there will be at least, I don't know, maybe a dozen, 20 organizations that will be part of that. And we plan on officially launching that in September with potential meetings in person too. So these are two pretty big news for OPDS. And another thing too is we want to make this easier. So those best practices we'll be producing, those improvements, we want to make it very easy, transparent for most of the people using our toolkits to implement them. So we're also very interested and focused in doing that. And one way we'll do this is we're going to add a brand new reference implementation in our Swift toolkit. Swift is for iOS, for those of you who are not familiar with Swift, by the end of the year. And we're very much on the trajectory to have this in every toolkit. So quite a lot of interesting news for OPDS. We also have quite a lot of interesting news for EPUB, actually. So I've realized the more we meet people, the more we go to these conferences, the more I realize very few people are actually aware of what's going on right now W3C with EPUB. So I think it's a good idea to talk about it a bit more. So we've had the Publishing Maintenance Working Group now for a while, but the important bit of news is we have a new charter. And it goes until February 5th, 2027. So it's a 2-year charter, pretty much. And the very important thing to know about this new charter is that unlike EPUB 3.3, we can work on new features. So the transition from IDPF to W3C already happened a few years ago. But it took a few years for EPUB to become a true, real EPUB W3C standard. And one of the reasons for that is that the requirements for a real standard at W3C are quite a bit higher than what it was at IDPF. It takes multiple implementation testing. So for all those years, we've been focusing on those things and really never had the opportunity to work on new features. And while discussing the state of EPUB, we really realized that we couldn't go on like this, and that's why we needed a new charter to work on new features. So you might be wondering, so what are you working on if you're working on new features? So we have a number of task forces, and I think those task forces, which are small groups of people working on something, kind of gives you an idea of what we're working on. So first of all, accessibility has probably been the most active group within W3C for the last few years. There's work on EPUB itself, on metadata, on displaying those metadata. All of this is continuing to happen. There's a bit more annotation, but I'll let Laurent explain that a bit afterwards. And also a brand new task force on digital comics, which I'll also present right afterwards. And aside from EPUB, it's also worth pointing that we have a number of related specs that are not really the core of EPUB, but that we're allowed to work on. Publication manifest, audiobooks, TTS enhancements. There's actually a lot in there. So if you look up the Publishing Maintenance Working Group, you'll find a good list of documents that we are actually allowed to work on. So talking more specifically about the digital comics task force. So it's really the first time that we're focusing on comics. We've had fixed layout officially in EPUB now for about 10 years. Fixed layout started as something invented by Apple. It had a weird state where it was not really in EPUB 3, and then it finally got into EPUB 3 officially about 10 years ago. And we have huge markets where EPUB is driving everything. So Japan, for example, which is a market where digital is bigger than print, is using EPUB for, to power their markets. But we never really had a place to focus on those issues. So that's quite a big step forward that we're finally doing that. So this task force is actually co-chaired so I'm co-chairing this for EDRLab, and also Shinya from Kadokawa is involved there. So it's a Franco-Japanese thing. Not too surprising if you read manga. And we've had this very long discussion. We've been discussing, I don't know, maybe for 2 years now at least, how do we deal with continuously scrolled comics? Often call them webtoons, but you can't call them officially webtoons. Well, some of you know that comic on the right. That would be the webtoon version of it. So webtoons, for those of you who don't know about this, is a digital native format for comics. It's comics meant for your smartphone. It's the right size. You scroll. We scroll all day long, so we all know how to scroll. And yeah, you kind of design the comic around the idea that it's not something for print, but something for your phone. So it's a huge format in Korea, in Japan, also in the US actually. And there wasn't really any way of standardizing its representation in EPUB. So Japan had been doing something for some time, and we're finally coming to agreement on how this will be handled. It'll be a third type of EPUB. We have reflowable, we have fixed, and that would be a new category of EPUB files. But the task force will also focus just on fixed layout in general. So what we've seen, so first of all, that's always a big question. What about images and spine? So right now in EPUB, we're always forced to wrap images in an HTML container, but we see that many clients, so many reading apps, they just take the images and do the rendering with that. So it's still a bit of an open question, because if we allow that, then we have to deal with how do we handle accessibility. But the truth is accessibility right now for comics is not really handled. So that's a big question we have right now. There are also questions about what we call spreads. So spreads is when you have a left page and a right page. And what we see is that the user always decide whether they want 2-page or 1-page. But there's a bit of an inherent tension in EPUB where we let the authors think they have control over that, whereas in reality, it's always the user who decides if they prefer 1-page or 2-page, depending on their preferences. So we really want to revisit that. We've also seen that the way the industry is using spread is very different from what the spec says, which is usually not a terribly good sign. So we're quite interested in realigning the spec with the reality of the industry. And of course, and I sincerely hope that, this will also lead to accessibility-related tasks. So we all know that in just a few days now, EAA is going to be our reality, at least in Europe. But today, it's still impossible to create accessible comics. You can create partially accessible comics, but if you want to have comics that work for a very wide group of users, it's not technically possible because no format can support this. So we cannot be working on something that's image-based without asking those questions. And I know there's a lot of interest from specialized libraries, for example, in this topic. So I don't know if 2 years will be enough to cover that subject, but I think we'll at least bring new ideas and new things to the table to move things forward on that regard. And I think you're...
I will just continue on another effort at W3C, second task force, which is about annotations in EPUB. As you know, EPUB is great to read, but people want to annotate their books. And when they annotate their books today, they are in a closed environment, usually. So they annotate in an application, the information is kept in the application. When they want to change the application, they lose their annotations. And there are many use cases when sharing annotations is useful. For example, in the education world, I've got a teacher, he annotates, if he could give the annotations of a book to his students, or the students give their annotations to the teacher, it would be useful. Annotations can also be shared even in a closed environment when you want to synchronize different devices, but it would be so much better if you could synchronize different devices, not from the same brand. It would be so great. So all these use cases led us thinking that creating a standard for annotations in EPUB would be useful. We start the development now. After at EDRLab, we tried with the prototype that we have implemented in Thorium Desktop, Thorium Reader Desktop. So Thorium Desktop user can already use something which is the prototype of what should be the future standard. The group is starting, so I said at the moment we expect to have something reference as a global standard next year from the W3C. It will be included in EPUB 3.4, and we expect to have several implementations. So we hope to have implementations from our friends from FB Readers, our friends from Colibrio. We are discussing with people from the social networks like Readwise, discussing with people who do software for citations like Zotero. So we try to talk with Google, with Apple. We try to talk with all these guys who should be able easily to export annotations in a certain way, which would be totally standard. So we could have the export as either a file, an exported file that you can put everywhere you like, or something, so a resource that goes inside an EPUB. So you put the knife and the fork together, and you export an EPUB with your annotations, and when you import the EPUB elsewhere, it's with your annotations. So we've got the two solutions studied at the moment, and we hope that many organizations will size it, and development organizations, and I hope that we will have support from system vendors, libraries, booksellers. So please, just come to us if you want to know more. What we are looking at is based on an old specification from W3C that was there for the web. So in fact, we adapt to technology that has been there for the web and which didn't succeed to something for ebooks, and that will succeed. I hope so.
Thank you, Laurent.
Voilà, it was short. Gautier.
So the Publishing Community Group is a particular group in the W3C because it's an open one. So that means you don't need your organization to be member of the W3C. You can go yourself to the W3C webpage, you register, it's a free account, and then you go to the PCG webpage, and then you can get information about the meetings, what's going on, and register to the mailing list. It's an innovation place, so it's really the place where we wish and we hope to collect more information from the industry. So we are very looking forward to having as many people as possible participating there. The group does not produce standards by itself, but some of the discussion we have there can end up in standardization later. What we produce mainly are a good practice and notes that adds context and helps you to work with standards. Actually, we have three active task forces in the Publishing Committee Group. The first is anti-counterfeit, which work on content verification, signing, and making sure that we have ways to identify an authentic version of an EPUB. I do not participate in this working group, so I won't tell much, but you know it exists. The second one is on documentation. So we have some resource pages. It's still not very well organized. It's not a library yet, but it's becoming more and more organized. And the documentation task force also started like 3 months ago artificial intelligence in reading system series. So it's not webinars, but it's presentation. We invite every time one expert of the field, and he does a presentation, and then we have a discussion around the topic. That's very interesting. But we don't have, there's no recording of those, but there are meeting minutes. And last community group task force is the accessibility one, which is by far the more active. Just as in the maintenance working group, the accessibility activity is really leading and paving the way. This year we released in April an accessibility metadata display guide, which is a version 2.0 now. So if you have a reading application, a bookshop, a library page, something where you display books and people can select a book, that's the place where you'll find guidance on how to inform the reader of the accessibility features of the website, of the books, sorry. It's actually implemented by the Fondazione catalog in Italy. It's available in the Radium Mobile Toolkit. It's available in Thorium in 3.2 that will be released soon. It's also available in more than 100 bookshops in France and in Canada. And as far as I know, we don't have all the information, of course. And we recently heard that it also was implemented by Amazon. So I think that that's it. That's everything about the publishing committee group. Do not hesitate to join. Thank you.